Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another one of our exit interviews for Big Brother Hometowns Season 20. It's crazy that this is our 7th exit interview of the season, which means we are getting dangerously close to the finale, which means that each of these eliminations has just gotten harder and harder, and that was certainly the case when we said goodbye to this juror just the other night. I'm devastated, to say the least, but man, so excited to be here with my friend and get a chance to have a little kiki and talk about BBH20. So let's bring her in. It's Megan. Hey. How are you doing, my love?
I'm good. I've had a relaxing Saturday. Didn't have to play a comp or
right.
So that was cute. I didn't go to bed early last night, but I could have.
Right.
The option was there, which is also cute. So I'm okay. I'm good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I know you were certainly, it's been 2 days since your eviction, so I know that yesterday was certainly more difficult than maybe today feels, or Thursday was more difficult than maybe you feeling now, but I'm glad that you are in a good space. You're processing, you're figuring out. This was your first time making a jury, making it this far in a game. What was your experience like trying to figure out how to navigate the end game?
Yeah, that is really hard. And I don't think it really hit me until after we started once we got out Nikki, then Lamont, once we were kind of at that phase, I think that's when it really hit me of oh, how do I really see the rest of this going? So getting to jury, there was still a good amount of us, and there was still a lot of wiggle room as far as Dancing Queens being an alliance, and there were people that we could still work with or nominate, didn't have to be each other.
Right.
As those numbers started going, I think that's when I started to really feel more insecure about how to play the rest of the end game. So I feel the first few rounds of jury I felt confident in. But it wasn't until that Nikki and Lamont leaving that I was oh, I don't know if I don't know if I really been looking as far ahead as I've needed to at this point.
And I think we're going to get to it and talk about it more in depth later on, but I certainly, the wheels were turning for you at final 8, final 7, final 6 of if you should flip and when you should flip, and we'll certainly talk about it. I want to go backwards first, though, because firstly and foremost, it was a no-brainer to ask you back to play this season. I remember sitting across from you at a International House of Pancakes and being like, hey, so question, is this hypothetically something you'd be interested in? And you were immediately on board and ready. So,
cast me
down. What was it like for you to consider coming back, to prepare to come back? What were you kind of thinking coming back?
Yeah. I knew that coming back was going to take a lot, mentally and emotionally. These games are hard. They are hard. You are living your life, plus you are doing this thing pretty much 24/7. Even if you're not talking to someone and you're doing work and living life, no, you're in here the whole time. Yeah. Who's talking to who? What's going on behind the scenes? What move do I need to make next? Should I win this HOA? Should I not? It is all consuming. So it had been about a year since I had played a big game. It was really only this one and a Survivor game I had played, and then some little fun ones. But so I think coming back, I had to have a lot of conversations with Chris, which he was immediately do it, play. Mm-hmm. But I was okay, but if I do this, I'm gonna
all in.
I'm all in. I'm probably gonna be really absorbed I'm gonna be MIA from people in my life. I can't be MIA obviously from like, you know,
Your children.
my children.
Right.
So, but I was like, but I'm like,
Yeah.
not that I hadn't taken games seriously before, but like the first time I played this game, I never played anything. So I'd like, I had no idea.
You had no concept. And while you adapted well, and
Sure.
while you figured it out on the fly, I think obviously after playing this and playing Endure,
Yeah.
you knew what to anticipate, what was needed
Yeah.
to go the distance.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I knew this time that I had to be more strategic about my social game. I knew that that was going to be my strong point, and I know that I'm likable. I know that I can get people to trust me. I know that I can get people to like me, but I had never figured out how to really capitalize on that in like a strategic sense.
Yeah.
So where my head was coming into this, it was like, girl, you got to capitalize on that, and like that is a huge strength, so like use that well. And like that's kind of how that's where my head was coming into this game. Like, you can play the social game well, so be strategic about it.
Yeah. You had a great day zero in this game. I remember us talking about it and being like, wow, she just like had like, because you didn't do too much, but you did more than a lot of people. And it seemed like people really responded well to you early on. And then cut to 2 days later, and you're in danger of going home first because of the twist. How did that change your game? How did it impact your game? Because you could have been the first one out. You could have been in a lot of danger in that house. So how did it impact and change your game?
Yeah, I think it impacted me because I had to change a little bit of who I was social with at that point. So I had really, on day zero, I had tried to make all of my calls with people who I had never talked to before, or at least I hadn't played a game with, like had a previous like game relationship with. And so when I was put into that, like when we were split into those houses, like I don't think I would have been like a nom round one if it wasn't for this, because of my social game day zero. Like I don't think I would have been on the block,
right?
If it hadn't have been for that twist. And so Michael was someone who I did connect with day zero really well, but I hadn't really circled back to. So finding myself on the block in a small house like that, I guess, wasn't crazy surprising because it was hard. But I think what that did is it forced me to have stronger connections at that point with Caro and Trey, which honestly, Caro was not someone that I was initially planning on working with.
Right.
Like day zero, we had a great call. It was fine. Like we had played traders together, whatever. But like, I don't think I was expecting really to work with Caro. So that is, I think that shifted because I was like, okay, I really have to capitalize on this relationship with Caro, and Caro seems to really want to work with me. And so I was like, well,
here we are. Yeah.
Run with this. I think that that was the first time I had to use, I think, my likability in a strategic sense with Liv. I didn't need Liv's vote technically to stay, but I wanted it. I wanted to like see if I could win someone over who was at that point seemingly going to keep Preston. So I think when I did that successfully, that gave me some confidence moving forward. That felt like a big win in my book.
Yeah. I mean, and I think what you just said about like, maybe you didn't see yourself working with Caro, but you're like, all right, well, this is where I've been thrust. This is what the game is thrust upon me. And here I am, and this is what I'm doing. I think you showed that ability throughout the entire game, and it really kept you in a really secure spot through most of the game. I mean, at even the pre-jury, section, you kind of were shifting towards the like Lamont, Jabbar, Meg's group of things. Then you get flipped over to the other house, and you're like, okay, now I have to really build with Erica, Sarah, Michael, and I felt like you really navigated being pulled in multiple directions really well. I'm curious if you sensed that while you were in the game and how you kind of navigated it.
I did sense, and it was a call that Trey and I had earlier on in pre-jury. Oh gosh, it had to be before, or maybe it was after the split houses. Oh gosh, I don't remember. No, it was before, because I think Caro was still in it. But Trey and I had this conversation of like, hey, I feel like like I'll hear people say like, oh, I don't really know like where Christian's head is at, or oh, I don't know if like Nikki's been honest with me, or blah blah blah. And I was kind of like, oh, I think I know where Christian's head is at, or oh, I think I've had some good conversations with Nikki. And do I think that I was like the hub of information? No, but I did get this sense that I felt like I could easily flip between. And I think that was because I was just being really honest. I think that I don't think people were maybe as mad at me or saw me as much as they maybe saw Trey or some other people who were kind of floating about, because I was really upfront and honest with people I was connecting with, but I was also really upfront and honest with like, hey, I know we're not close. Or like if Sarah and I would get on a call, I was like, I knew how to be like honest and upfront and like genuine with her without pretending like you and I are besties and we're working in
Yeah.
together. And I think that's what ended up serving me well when I was in that house with Sarah and Erica, even though Erica and I had a closer relationship. But I think I was able to lean into that because I hadn't lied. I hadn't been disgenuine. They had no reason to not trust me and no reason to not like me and no reason to want to play with me at that point. So yeah, I could feel it, but then that worried me jury phase.
But we got to the jury phase, and I don't want to skip past the fact that you made your first jury. Like, honestly, so excited for you, because honestly, you should have made the jury in 17. You should have made the jury in Endure. Like, by all stretch of the imagination, you shouldn't have been evicted last, especially as last pre-juror back to back. Like that, I mean, how rotted. So like, when we were drafting the season and we knew we wanted to do that split house twist, I was like, I swear to God, because anyone can go at a final six. Yes. So I was like, I swear to God, if Megan is the final pre-juror again there, I'm going to delete the server. But what was that feeling like for you to make your first jury?
Well, I will tell you, and Chris, I was like panting around the house, because at that point we were all speculating that it was about to be a split house again right before jury, and it was going to be double eviction. So when I was on that like announcement or whatever where you guys had announced that it was, I was like literally pacing the house and I started crying. And Chris was like, why are you crying? And I was like, I'm going to go here. I'm going. I was like, it's just like, this is what it is. I always like go. It's the last preacher. Like, this is a twist. I'm going to go. And then when I heard who was in what houses, I was like, oh, maybe I might have a chance here.
Maybe.
Right. And luckily I had just had a conversation with like Sarah and Erica earlier, like before the whole split thing happened. So, I mean, I will say it lit a fire under my booty, and like, I fought hard in that house, to make sure that I wasn't a nom. I could have been a renom. Thank God I wasn't, but I was just like fighting really hard. And so when I made jury, it felt like the biggest accomplishment. Yeah. It felt like such a relief. I don't think I realized until I made jury how much that, I mean, I knew it meant a lot to me. I knew I wanted it. But once I was there, once it happened, I was like, holy frick.
The fear of not being pre-jury again. Yeah, it was like lifted from
It was lifted. I felt like I could lean, not that I wasn't leaning into a strategic game pre-jury, because I felt like I had to really hard to make sure I didn't get like that, make sure I made it to jury.
Yeah.
But I did feel this sense of kind of like,
yeah,
okay, that weight has been lifted.
Yeah. You mentioned that you were worried going into jury because you feel like you were getting pulled from multiple sides. Ultimately, at least from my perspective, it looked like you chose to play the jury phase with the Dancing Queens, Michael, Megs, Olivia, and Trey.
Yeah.
What was the tipping point to making that decision? And obviously that'll lead us into a conversation about, you deciding if you wanted to stick with that to the 5. Yeah. And I know you didn't. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on all that as well.
Yeah. So coming out of those split houses and then going into jury, like the tension that was from that other house and knowing how like kind of good our house was, like pulled people together. Like Trey was someone who was like my person.
Yeah.
I think I was Trey's person along with a lot of other people. Who knows? Trey, you can tell me that later. So I really thought I was Trey's person. So the idea, and I trusted Megs so much still at that point.
Yeah.
And Michael at that point. So in my head, I was really close with Trey. He was like my number one. I thought that like Michael and I were super close and that Michael basically considered me like one of his closest allies. I've trusted Megs. And so like bringing all of that together into an alliance in my head, I was like, oh, this is a great place for me to be. And then Megs was like, hey, me, you and Michael need to be like a hub of source of information. So in my head,
yeah,
Megs and I were the ringleaders of this alliance. And we were kind of having like Michael a part of it. And then I thought I had my own little thing with Trey. So like initially I was like, this is a really great place to be. I'm going to get to like help like determine what happens.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, initially why it was like, this feels safe, this feels secure. At that point, Sarah and Erica were still around too. And even though they weren't in it, they were still like, I was still really close with them. So I think I felt like, not only do I feel secure in this big alliance, but I also have people outside of it that I'm connected with.
Mm-hmm.
Jabbar was still one of them. Lamont was still one of them. Nikki was too. But like, there's a lot of regrets there. But
well, and that's, I mean, I think let's talk about it. I mean, at Final 7, after Nikki and Luis leave, you and Trey are having a lot of conversations about, does it make sense for us to go to 5 with Dancing Queen? We have this option with Jabbar. You have that alliance. You have a personal relationship with Lamont, and he's telling you, we have 4 17ers left.
I know.
And now, I mean, looks, there's only one in the final. So it's like, you know, you had options.
Yeah.
And you had the ability to do it with Trey at Live Night. You guys could have done something different. What went into ultimately not going down that path?
I really think it was Liv telling us that she had that power. So Liv coming onto the call that one night saying, I have this power, like I got the advantage. It's this menu of options. I think that I felt at that point trapped. And trapped feels like a really like intense word to use, because like, was I? No, I could have made my own choices. No one held a gun to my head and said, Megan, stay in this alliance. But I think part of me was like, looking at everything, I was like, okay, hold on. Like, if Liv has this power, and like Liv and Megs and Michael, but especially Liv, was very like, dancing queens, dancing queens, dancing queens. Like, we must stay loyal. And I think like, and I get now why that benefited, right, their game from their perspective. So I think there was some fear and like being disloyal, but then I think it was ultimately that power that was really scary. And I think that I think Trey and I were too scared to do something because we knew that it existed and we knew who had it and we knew it could be used. I do regret that. I think we should have done it anyways. I do regret locking myself in with Dancing Queens. Because in my gut, like the whole time was like, I just like don't know if this is who you need to be staying with. But
and unfortunately, you know, the consequences of talking about those options kind of comes back to bite you, where you are the first person that's like getting the axe from Dancing Queen. You not only find yourself on the block from Megs's hand at Final 6, from Liv's hand at Final 6.
Yeah, right.
But then, you know, and then again at Final 5, you know, and then you're like the one that's axed there. So obviously hindsight is 2020. It didn't work out for you.
Right.
I'm curious, as we walk down the path and as you've seen the game unfold, like, what are your thoughts going into finale? And because you and Trey, the two people who were kind of the ones that were vocal about maybe we flip on Dancing Queens, get the boot. And then, you know, the rest of that group is still there. So
Right.
tell me what you're thinking about, the end of the Dancing Queen and going into the finale.
Yeah. So end of Dancing Queens. I mean, like going in. I mean, if you're gonna go into 5 with an alliance, like you obviously know like you're gonna eat each other. So like I was very, and I think that's what I didn't want to happen. I'm still very proud. I think as much as I did want to flip and wish I had and regret not, I
Yeah.
am at the same time like holding both of those. I am actually still very proud too that Dancing Queen that we did do what we did.
Both
Like
can exist.
both
Right?
exist in the same
Yeah.
realm, right? So I am proud of it, and so if that meant that I was like 5th going out of Dancing Queens, like I am still proud of making it there with them. So, but I think my biggest thing going into like finale with Trey and I being out, like I think I just have a lot of question marks, like, and I need.
Did it surprise you that, like, I guess the voters in that situation were at Final 5 were Liv and Michael? Did it surprise you that they didn't choose you? Or was that something that you feel like you felt coming?
I'm not surprised Liv didn't choose me. When Liv non me that one time, then at 6 or whatever, and we knew Jabbar was leaving, that didn't like super surprise me either. I think that solidified what my head was already telling me, and that it was like, and Liv and I didn't talk a lot, honestly. We really didn't. So like, it did not super surprise me that Liv, that I was the choice for Liv to put up. You know, I was a little peeved it wasn't Meg's, but like I also understood the logic and the reasoning behind it. And karma, because Meg's with you now, so probably should have done Meg's. But anyways, so no, wasn't surprised that Liv didn't keep me. Hella surprised at Michael. Super surprised. And I guess a little tiny bit less because of the conversation that Liv and I had when Liv like spilled the tea of like, oh yeah, like me and Trey and Michael have had this like 3 group. And that's when I realized I was like, oh, Michael's in that 3 group. Michael's in a 3 group with me and Megs. Michael might have been in a 3 group with like him, Trey, and who knows who else. Like, so that I think hit me where I was like, oh, Michael's been sitting in a sweet spot. And so all the things that I've been throwing at him about why I'm good for his game, like, might not always make sense because of the spot he's sitting in. I just didn't know that's where he was sitting.
Sure.
So I think it would have been better for me to stay for him. But so Michael not keeping me was a big surprise, mainly because of him telling me that he was going to keep me, like knowing Trey was the renom. And like, so he, like, the excuse can't be if he's sitting there at finale and like this excuse can't be like, oh, I didn't lie to you. Like I didn't know who the renom was going to be. Bitch, you did. You knew exactly who it was. Like there was only one person that was going to be up there and it was going to be Trey. So Michael surprised me. That one hurts. I understand. I now, after like watching Survivor and stuff for all these years, I'm always like, how, like, don't be a bitter jury. Like, don't be a bitter jury. And now I'm like, whoa, I get it. I totally get it when you go out so close to the end.
Yeah.
I still feel like I'm processing things. Like today's a lot better, but I still feel like it's going to be, I think it's going to be so really hard to like look these people in the face at finale and be like, I don't actually want to like congratulate you.
Yeah.
I do, but I don't. Like, so I'm gonna have to work really hard to not be bitter at Michael if Michael's there.
Who are you rooting for? I'm curious.
I'm kind of rooting for Liv, which is a little surprising, and that's maybe slightly because I'm bitter at Michael. And not that I like wouldn't love to see Megs win. I think Megs has like eaten up and killed this season, but I just feel like Liv's been really super honest with me, even in the times that like we haven't talked as much. Like, and that's the one thing that I've just appreciated about Liv and I's relationship this whole game is we've never had a super super close working relationship, but anytime we've had a talk game, I feel like we've both been really honest and been pretty transparent. Like even all the stuff she told me, like when I like before going out, like. Like I was like, oh dang, like, you didn't have to really tell me any of that.
Right.
This day, you know.
Right.
I'm also could be going to the jury, and you're telling me all of this that like might not make me very happy. So, I'm rooting for Liv.
Okay.
Now, but Michael could convince me. If Michael can convince me, if Michael's at finale and he can convince me that his like social moves were strategic and can show me the map, okay.
Yeah. I'm curious, where does Megs factor into all this? Because obviously you guys had a really great relationship to start the game. You fell away a little bit, came back together at the jury phase, and then again fell away. And you guys had obviously had a disagreement towards the end about her nominating you, and but you were also trying to get her out. So it is what it is. Fair. Where does Megs factor into this when it comes to like potentially being able to get your vote?
So this is probably going to sound incredibly egotistical and selfish, but if Megs can thank me, which she kind of already did, thank me a little bit for helping in her relationship with Mont, but if she can thank me for helping mend her relationships with Trey and Michael, and now that is not to say that Megs has not played her own social game.
Right.
Like I am not the reason.
Yeah. Throw in the plausible deniability as you
I am not the reason.
Because the whole picture, right?
Yes,
you don't know.
I know that. But I do know when like leaving when in that split house when we were gonna keep Michael, Megs was very like, okay.
She wanted to keep Christian.
She wanted to keep Christian and was very much like, I'm gonna have to have help like with Michael's trust here, because Michael, like she had put Michael up on the block. Like there had been, and Michael wasn't super trusting of Megs. Like, so there was some like, you're gonna have to like help me here. And even the whole Trey thing, like it was very like, I don't know if we want to bring Trey into this alliance. And I was like, no, I think we can. So like, I think if Megs can recognize that, like, I just hope that there was real relationship and workability, that there was that she actually sees that we did work together. I think that's my biggest thing is I want to hear from Megs, like, did we actually work together in this, or were like you just using me the whole time to get to this end point? And like, and then when did things switch for her and Dancing Queens to where like it didn't seem like I was your closest person anymore? Sure. Did it switch after you heard me throwing out your name? If so, fair. If it switched before then, which I felt like it switched before then, which is partly why I was throwing your name out there, then like what happened? Yeah. So I think I just need some clarity.
I know the answer to that question, but you'll find out soon enough, I think. But is there anything else that I feel like, I want to save more of your jury thoughts for the roundtable tomorrow. I don't want to spoil the lead on that. But I'm, firstly, so incredibly blessed that I know you and that we are friends. I love you so much. I'm so glad that I pulled you into this ridiculous world and that you said yes to coming back. I'm so excited that you're going to get to help us crown the winner of the season tomorrow night, which is just crazy. Is there anything else that you want to say? What you have the floor to kind of wrap us up here.
Oh God. Anything else I want to say? No, I mean, not to be all therapist, but I am incredibly hard on myself. I am someone who like, I am my biggest critic. And I know we all are to some degree, but like, I've just always been very, 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 very hard on myself. And so I knew that coming into this season that was going to be my biggest struggle, was myself and my head and being hard on myself. And so, I think that like something just came over me the day of Final Five. I think that like I didn't know yet I was going to be a nom, but I think like I'd made a confessional like that day, and I was just like, I'm more at peace today than I've been with my game and getting to this point. So, I'm sad that I got out, but at the same time, I'm incredibly proud. And it's taken me a while to, I think, like actually mean that. Cause I definitely should be. I think I've said like, oh yeah, I'm like proud of my game. But I think I think I'm finally at a point where I'm like, no, hold on. I think I'm actually really proud. And I didn't need to be as hard on myself the whole time. And that freaking POV win, like period. That's all I need to say. Little booties up in 5 categories. I don't need to win all them comps.
Right.
Shoot. That's it. I think that's it. I don't know. It was so much fun. It really, really, truly was hard as hell.
Yeah.
Hard as hell. Hard as hell. But like so fun.
Yeah.
So
Well,
fun.
we love you so much, and we're so glad you came back. And you know, yeah, you played great, and I hope you are proud of yourself because you really, 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 really killed it this season. And you know, not to like rub any salt in any open wound, but outside of you being my friend, you were my winner pick because I really felt like you could take it all the way. And it wasn't just like the fact that I know you, it was like the fact that I know how good you are and I know what you can do. And I felt like this cast would align with you, and they obviously did. And that's why they took you. That's why they had to get rid of you at 5. So
sense. I could have won. They needed to get me out. I get
it. I'm blessed to know you, and I appreciate you so much. And we're gonna get out of here before either of us start crying. So
I know. So I just did my makeup. I'm gonna go see Gabby Franklin. We're gonna go hang out.
Have fun. All right, bye everybody.